Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
And it's Monday morning, 5:07. Good morning. Let's get started properly. If you're just rolling over and it's like, oh, it's such a nice weekend, I want to stay in bed. That's fine, but listen to us while you lay in bed. Turn us up a little louder. Wake up that lazy bum next to you. Let's get going. We got a lot to get to on an important April 7th, as this week we should be a very interesting one in your nation's capital and in American politics. Coming up at 7:05, Joe DeGenova will make things make sense for us. It's 7:35, Maryland Delegate Matt Morgan on a very busy weekend in Annapolis with radical Democrats calling the shots. 8:05, she's no radical, she's Katie Gorka, chairwoman of the Fairfax Republican Party. Boy, a lot going on in Fairfax County right now with your Fairfax County schools. And then at 8:35, Steve Moore from Heritage will make all the tariff stuff make sense. Real quick snapshot for you. China's stock market crashed overnight. Everybody thinks that this whole tariff thing is going to hurt America in some way, and that it's Trump is committing suicide, and this is terrible. It's right. No, as we said with K.T. McFarland last week, Julie Gunlock, I'm sure you were listening on Thursday, I kept saying, this is really all about China, isn't it? Isn't this all about China? She goes, yes, this is all about China. Everyone's talking about the EU and Belgium chocolate is going to... No, that's going to work itself out. This is China. China's stock market down... Let me get the number here. China's stock market crashed 12%. The worst crash since 2008 in China's stock. By the way, I love it that a communist country has a stock market.
Right. Good point. Good morning, Larry.
It's for the oligarchs to be able to trade with each other. So if you just want a quick snapshot on how horrible these tariffs are, and again, I'm no economics expert. That's why we'll talk to Steve Moore. And I think people are making the very important distinction that just because a stock market doesn't do well, that doesn't mean it harms the economy per se. But it does harm individuals who are holding money in the stock market, who need that for retirement or what have you. Also, by the way, if you're like within 10 years of retirement and you're that loaded up on the stock market, oof, that's dangerous. So, I mean, regardless of who's president, what the policies are. All right, let me set all that aside. Here are the headlines coming into this morning, the latest on tariffs. China stock market down 12%, worst crash in 2008. Trump's latest approval ratings, he's up 4%.
Huh.
He's now got a 53. His approval ratings went up over the last several days as the tariff policy rolled out. So that's, I mean, even though, and we're going to get to all these crazy grassroots fed protests that you saw in the bluest of cities, in the bluest of states over the weekend. Oh, look at all of these protests, all Democrats.
All people getting paid.
We'll get to that in a minute, but the tariffs thing, I mean, again, as we're seeing it roll out, and everybody's an economics expert all of a sudden, just like if there's a mass shooting, everybody's a gun expert. And I have no doubt that there are going to be a ripple effect and repercussions, and I hope you can tell whenever I'm presenting this topic across this radio station and on this program, I'm challenging both sides of this equation with, I think, legitimate arguments coming from both sides. But it appears to me that the people who are yelling the most about it are people who are very wealthy and people who are absolutely connected in every possible way to Wall Street and the stock markets. And the people who seem to be celebrating are the people who are blue-collar workers and make things and have been worried about their towns. Now, again, I don't know that one side is right and one side is wrong. I just think it's noteworthy that the people who are most concerned about the tariffs and the repercussions of the tariffs are the people who are already very, very wealthy.
Well, that's what it appeared to be in Washington this weekend. I was really pleased to see the videos of these protests and not see anybody under, I don't know, 40. There was the rare young person at these protests, but
yeah,
this was a pretty...
real fast, those young people all looked like they were Antifa.
They did. You're right.
They looked like either they were getting their advanced degree in gender studies, or they just took the black mask off from
Or
being
they
Antifa.
all had keffiyehs on. They were obviously aligned, like you said, Antifa, radical young people. But yeah, these protests were quite something, Larry. They were. It would be as if my parents, my parents have always been conservatives, but it's like watching people that age relive Woodstock or something, or try to sort of relive their youth.
It's their hippie moment.
Yeah, and I don't mean
they're
to be
all
dismissive.
they're all singing Joan Baez, and they're all they're
exactly
smoking a little weed,
right? And I don't mean to be dismissive of older people protesting, but I mean it really was a sea of much older people who, like you said, are already well off, and it was really astonishing to see that sort of sea of gray hair. This was not a youth-led. And I also wonder, there were some really excellent man on the street interviews of people not knowing why in the heck they were even there.
Yeah, this actually is my favorite one of those videos. Just to set the scene, there's two old fogies. And no offense, they're probably in their 70s. I shouldn't say that. They're fine senior citizens who, you need a hobby after you retire, and they didn't want to go to the Nats game. I went to the Nats game personally. That was pretty fun. 20th anniversary of the Nats in D.C.
Nice
all
day
season
for
long. It was a beautiful day on Saturday. Instead, these two guys went down on the mall, and they're holding this big sign. It's black with white letters, and it says, "End the cackistocracy." Now, I feel like I'm a pretty articulate dude, but that's something you got to Google, right? I mean, it's not a word. Cackistocracy with a K. So I saw that, and I'm like, what does that mean? I have no clue what that means. Here's the best part. The two guys that I just described, they have no clue either.
And what brings you out here today?
What doesn't?
Yeah, so right there, it's like, what brings you out here? That should be an easy thing to answer. What brings you out here today? Oh, what doesn't?
Yeah.
So then they turned back over to him, and she just gently asked what the sign means.
Can you explain a little bit for our viewers what this means?
Go ahead.
Raise your hand out.
So all three of them, there's two dudes and then a woman who's also their age. They all point to each other, saying, "You tell her, you explain it, you explain it." And then the woman says to the one dude, "Well, read your handout." They gave him handouts.
Yep.
Little explainers. So read your handout. All right, opening up the paper.
Aristocracy. Government by the least suitable or competent citizens of a state. Seems to fit, doesn't it?
Good God.
Basically, they handed them this sign and then gave them a cheat sheet and a handout so they knew what the sign meant in the first place. And that seems like something that was copied and pasted from Wikipedia, and that's your protests. That's your protest.
There were a bunch of examples of this online last night, particularly on Twitter. And Phil Holloway, who's with Town Hall, he had this tweet. He said, "I was at an Irish pub in D.C. last night." It seemed like this seemed very Larry to me. "I was at an Irish pub in D.C. last night, and one of the paid protesters sat next to me. I didn't realize what he was at first, but he was drunk. He said he needed to keep his receipt to get reimbursed for expenses. He was bussed in from Wisconsin."
There you go. All right. That's why most of the news coverage only showed the helicopter shot or the drone shot. They did not want to get down on the ground and talk to these people. It was just the overwhelming, massive humanity. All right, we got a little bit more on this and how we know for sure that it was pre-planned and paid for by non-government organizations who are probably very angry that they're not getting their government money from USAID. We'll get to that in a moment. First, though, it's 5:15 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives with Jamie Whitten and the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic.
Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
There they are, singing Give Peace a Chance and Imagine and remembering what they were doing that day in Woodstock. Still acting like they're the cool kids.
But they didn't sound
out there marching on a Saturday morning. So how do we know that this is all just pre-planned, Soros-funded, NGO funded organized. First of all, it's the telltale signs, the pre-printed signs that nobody can even explain when somebody goes up and asks them, what does that mean? Stuff like that. But also, we got a hold of, they do, it's not really, I can't call it a Zoom call, but it's a video instructional thing that we got our hands on this. So now this is something that is specifically geared toward the 65 and over audience. And it's very well produced, graphics, all the instructions, everything they need to know. But here were the marching orders they were given, again, for 65 plus. This was broadcast to them on MSNBC Friday night. It's called The Rachel Maddow Show. It's all old people who watch it, who all think she's their very cute nephew, that gay nephew of theirs. Oh, our gay nephew Rachel is on the air again. But here was Rachel Maddow's marching order. You tell me, listen to how this is laid out there. And this is for 65 years old and plus retirees who have time on their hands and want to relive the 60s marches and protests.
Feels like it, right? That said, may I suggest that you go to bed kind of early, hydrate, eat your Wheaties in the morning. Maybe put off the Friday night cocktail to make it a Saturday night cocktail.
Yeah, have some Geritol.
If at all. I'm only saying that because tomorrow is going to be very busy. Saturday is going to be very busy. I said at the top of the show there are more than 1,200 protests planned for tomorrow in all 50 states. I stand corrected. It is more than 1,300 protests planned in more than in all 50 states. It's expected to be the largest single day of protest since Donald Trump took office. Joining us now is Ezra Levin. He's co-founder of Indivisible, which is one of the groups that is promoting these events tomorrow. Ezra, thanks very much for joining us tonight. You were here just a couple of 3 weeks ago talking about the earliest idea for April 5th being sort of a hub for events all over the country and in Washington.
You were here 3 weeks ago telling us how you were planning this spontaneous and organic thing. And your organization has a name, Indivisible. And you've been around for a while and you get all this funding and you're paying for this along with other organizations. They're saying it out loud, everybody.
Right. And we know there's been some significant investigations into this Indivisible, which is staging these protests at Republican town halls. They ship people all over the country. They pay for protesters. There are professional protesters out there now who literally rely on groups like Indivisible and others. Isn't Indivisible run by these two very young married couple? I think it is. And they do videos constantly. There's a Twitter account that sort of watches these videos so you don't have to. They do it sort of podcast style. And they lay out exactly what they're doing. Professional protesting, just as you laid out. This is what they do.
And to the geriatric crowd, Rachel Maddow. Honestly, the viewership of Rachel Maddow's show is it's brought to you by Geritol. It's all that's what it is. It's all old hippies. It's like Bernie Sanders age people. And you heard her prepping them. Okay, wake up early and eat your Wheaties. Don't have a cocktail tonight. Make sure you've got your energy. Bring some sunscreen with you. Maybe that big hat that you got. It's very nice.
Just like Woodstock. Oh, my God.
That's right. Exactly. So, that's what we're looking at. Oh, and they were singing, too. Can we get to that cut, too, here? Please. I do love it when they sing while they're protesting. Let's go. That's a game changer right there.
I'm convinced.
Meanwhile, the 18 to 25-year-old male vote is the single largest, fastest growing Trump and Republican voting bloc in our country right now. I mean, and for a reason. The hippies can chant and they can. And listen, I know a lot of our listeners are of a certain age. This isn't about the age. This is about the mindset. And this is about this whole reliving the past. And when you ask these people, what exactly are you protesting? It's called hands off. Hands off our government. Hands off. Dude, you were marching with Pelosi and Bernie and Obama when they were saying the exact same thing.
Yes.
That they wanted
Yes.
to cut these things, cut this waste, cut this fraud, cut this and cut that, and the government isn't this. If you really want the government to be effective, you should be first in line supporting this. You were protesting Reagan. You were protesting Bush. You were protesting Dole. You were protesting Romney. You were protesting Quayle. You were protesting McCain. We know who you are. We've seen you our whole lives, and we're tired of it. It's 5:23.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
5:36 and your morning just got better because O'Connor and Company's on your favorite radio station. Look at that. See, it's all sunny skies and spring flowers from this point forward, except that it's going to be cloudy and rainy all day. Coming up at 7:05, Joe DeGenevo will join us. 7:35, Maryland Delegate Matt Morgan. 8:05, Katie Gorka. She's the Republican chairwoman of Fairfax County. And 8:35, Steve Moore, Heritage Foundation on the tariffs. So we're going to have a look-see at what's going on in Maryland, look-see what's going on in Fairfax, Virginia, and then we'll have a look-see of what's going on across the country. That's sort of the description of how this show rolls every morning. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Virginia's favorite daughter, Julie Gunlock. Good morning.
Good
Julie.
morning.
You don't think you're Julie Gunlock? You don't think you're Virginia's favorite daughter?
Maybe parts.
Wait, parts of you or parts of Virginia? There are some of your parts are very popular in certain neighborhoods of Northern Virginia. All right, so I hate to, revisit an old story here, look under the rock, considering this finally is sort of like this relatively non-story has gone away. But the whole signal gate, the signal chat, the signal strike. I found a couple of things about the whole signal group chat, national security, Trump infrastructure, talking about the strike against the Houthis thing fascinating. The two aspects that I found fascinating were, of course, not what the legacy media and Trump-hating Republicans in Washington, D.C. thought were fascinating. I found two aspects. Looking at it from, 30,000 feet, I found two things. Number one, the one unanswered question that still hasn't been answered, which we might have possibly an answer to, according to some reporting from The Guardian, although I don't know why we should trust The Guardian, but it's an interesting angle, and we'll give you that. We might know now how Jeffrey Goldberg got included on this group chat. The second is how, depending on where your perspective is in this town, you had three positions. Number one, it's kind of a nothing burger. It's a distraction. It's too bad that it happened, but it's not the kind of thing anybody should lose their job over.
Yes, that's
right.
Yes.
And that's sort of where we've been the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? Number two, especially in contrast to, nobody getting fired over Afghanistan and Abbey Gate and
right.
all the other, right. All right, so that's number one. Number two, you took this as reason number 1 through 1,000 that you've always been saying Mike Waltz should have never been in this administration and Mike Waltz has got to go and Mike Waltz should be fired. It's like, I don't quite see that. But there are some people who have never liked or have been suspicious of Mike Waltz, and they took this as an opportunity to say, see, that's why he's got to go. And for all of those people, there are an equal number of people who say the same thing about Pete Hegseth. It's like, oh, that's it. That's why Pete Hegseth's got to go. Pete Hegseth's got to go. Pete Hegseth's got to go. And if you look at it, I guess there is one disconcerting chat. There's one thing said in this entire group chat that you could theoretically say, Hegseth should have never said. Hegseth did give some details about the attack, but not details that would have compromised the attack, not details that would have put anybody in danger, not details that would have rendered the attack any less effective had it fallen into the wrong hands, which, of course, it didn't fall into the wrong hands. So if you're looking at it as this is the reason why Hegseth's got to go, well, that's because you hated Hegseth in the first place.
Right.
If you see this as a reason why Mike Waltz has to go, well, it's because you hated Mike Waltz in the first place. So those are the things that are interesting to me. The fact that this has been used and employed as a reason to get rid of somebody you hated, which didn't work because Trump has been loyal and stood by both Hegseth and Waltz. And number two, how did Jeffrey Goldberg get in there? Is there anything else about this whole signal thing that I've left on?
No, you've actually, here? But I think the most important thing is people kind of fall into their predictable category, right?
Yes. Yes.
Right. Yes. So
And you know exactly who they are.
Yes.
Exactly. All right. So now here's the Guardian reporting. According to 3 people briefed on the internal investigation, Goldberg had emailed the Trump campaign about a story that criticized Trump for his attitude towards wounded service members.
The nerve.
Well, Jeffrey Goldberg cannot stop being Jeffrey Goldberg. To push back against the story, the campaign enlisted the help of Mike Waltz, the national security surrogate. So he was very active in the campaign. He was out there in the forefront speaking on behalf of Trump for his national security policies, but also his attitude towards vets, because Mike Waltz is a veteran himself. Goldberg's email was forwarded to then Trump spokesperson Brian Hughes, who then copied and pasted the content of the email, including the signature block with Goldberg's phone number, into a text message that he sent to Mike Waltz so that he could be briefed on the forthcoming story. Waltz did not ultimately call Goldberg, the people said, but in an extraordinary twist, inadvertently ended up saving Goldberg's number in his iPhone under the contact card for Hughes, who is now the spokesperson for the National Security Council. Ugh. And I got to tell you something. That actually makes sense to me.
Totally. Yes.
That has happened to me before.
I read this, and I was like, oh, I remember that time.
Yes, exactly. You go to save the address, and this is iPhone's called, or not just iPhone, Android does this too, that you're going to save an address, and it just searches for a phone number, it finds the phone number, and it automatically fills in the contact card, that phone number. So he thinks he's adding Mr. Hughes, the spokesperson for NSC, which he was, but the phone number attached to Mr. Hughes is Jeffrey Goldberg.
This really does make sense. And honestly, it's this sort of cautionary tale about AI and about technology. There are so many things that I find useful with technology today. There's in Google, there's actually this task thing. Nobody knows about this. I tell people all the time about this little task manager that it has, and I use it, right? And people are like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But again, sometimes technology can really bite you in the butt, okay? Yes. And you have to be very careful. I actually am quite vigilant about things because I am so nervous. It's sort of, I always fear that sort of reply all, right? The accidental reply all where you give really embarrassing, not that I'm emailing embarrassing stuff to people, but the point is I sort of always fear that. I do. I've always feared. So I've always been very careful. This is a perfect example of how AI can really backfire. I mean, you wish that people wouldn't.
It's an autofill thing.
It is, and this needs to be not used.
Yeah. Right. That said, you're right, and you should be careful, and I think we've all had moments like this, and it became a cautionary tale, and so that made you careful. I think it's fair to say that then Congressman Waltz, now National Security Advisor Waltz, one would hope that he would be that careful and it wouldn't take something like this. But you know what? When you have people who do this for you most of the time, that's the thing that can happen. So that seems to be, I mean, that's as good an explanation as I've seen so far, but it is coming from the Guardian, so take it for what it's worth. But watch that space, and there's apparently a mystery that appears to have an answer. What we don't have an answer for is why still people think that this is a reason why Pete Hegseth should be fired.
Yeah,
I'll never
that
quite
will remain a mystery.
But some things will never be known. It's 5:45. Julie, I just mentioned that you are Virginia's favorite daughter.
Yes.
It's 100% true. But you are not the nominee for governor. That title now officially goes to Winsome Earl Sears, as the Republican Party announced that she had secured and was the only person to secure the appropriate number of signatures and spread across enough counties and districts in Virginia to qualify for the ballot. We had Amanda Chase on the show last week, talking about how she had turned in her signatures, and she was hopeful that her last-minute grassroots campaign to be able to challenge Ms. Sears, Lieutenant Governor Sears, would be successful, but apparently it was not. Over the weekend, the party deemed that she did not have the number of signatures required, and so this is a pretty clean ballot going in, apparently.
Yeah.
It's not going to be and same thing on the Democrat side. Abigail Spanberger is the nominee without any challenge. So it's Spanberger for the Dems, Winsome Earl-Sears on the right, lieutenant governor, running with the full endorsement of Glenn Youngkin. And she has time now to work on getting the Republican Party behind her. There are some cracks in that facade. She was not enthusiastic about Donald Trump back after the indictment. It was the Stormy Daniels indictment of Donald Trump, I think, that compelled Ms. Sears to feel like she needed to say something critical of Mr. Trump. She seemed to be supporting Ron DeSantis. But, there's a lot. Listen, Chris Sununu up in New Hampshire was all in on DeSantis and anti-Trump. Yeah. And just yesterday, Trump endorsed Sununu to be the senator from New Hampshire. So there are ways of recovering.
Well, you might want to take a page, if you're so upset about that, maybe take a page from Trump himself, who seems to be able to forgive and move on. I just want to also give a shout out to Dave LaRocque. Who was also was running for the role as well, and he also withdrew because he didn't get enough signatures. But he's a great champion of Sage's Law and of parents' rights, and so just a shout out to Dave LaRocque because I thought he was such a promising nominee as well. But it is Winsome Sears, and again, everyone needs to forgive and forget and move on. She is Winsome Sears. My goodness, what a story! What a champion for another champion for parents' rights. So it's exciting. It's good to have our nominee.
That is the key here. Is that Winsome Sears? If Abigail Spanberger gets in that seat,
oh my
all
gosh.
all of the laws against parents' rights. We're right back to Ralph Northam and Terry McAuliffe all over again, and worse actually.
Much worse.
By the way, Attorney General race has also been nobody challenged Jason Yaris on the Republican side. So the Republican although there is going to be a primary in the lieutenant governor's race, we've had a couple of those candidates declared candidates on already, and we'll continue to watch that. And the primary is set for June 17th. But Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears is poised to not only be the first female governor of Virginia. I guess either way we're going to have the first female governor of Virginia. She could be the first African-American female governor in America. Jamaican-born, American citizen, came here the legal way. Her dad with, I think, about less than $10 in his pocket. She joined the military. It was a Marine. She's got a great husband, great family. She loves her guns. She loves the unborn. And she's ready to pick up Governor Youngkin's torch and carry it for 4 more years. Youngkin's personality and political acumen will certainly be on full display because he would like to solidify his legacy by getting Winsome Earl-Sears elected. For everybody who says that this cycle favors Democrats, you're right. It does. And that's why Abigail Spanberger must be stopped. So Sears and Miyares, they know how to run in this state and they know how to win. And it's game on now all the way to Election Day, 5:53.